It was a quiet evening in a little village nestled between rolling green hills. The scent of blooming jasmine filled the air, and the sky was aglow with soft shades of orange and pink as the sun sank behind the horizon. Inside a cozy cottage at the edge of the village, a young boy named Max sat by the window, his chin resting on his folded hands. His eyes were wide with wonder as he watched the sky change colors, moment by moment. Behind him, the soft creak of footsteps echoed on the wooden floor. It was his grandfather, Bob, a gentle man with kind eyes and a voice as soft as rustling leaves. He walked up and placed a warm hand on Max's small shoulder. "What are you dreaming about, little one?" Bob asked, his voice full of calm curiosity. Max didn't turn around. His gaze remained fixed on the sky. "Grandpa, do you think the sky remembers all the stories it's seen?" Bob chuckled, his laughter light and musical, like the sound of wind chimes swaying in a summer breeze. "Oh, the sky remembers everything," he said. "Every whisper carried by the wind, every secret shared beneath the stars. It holds them all." Max turned slightly, eyes bright. "Can you tell me one of those stories?" Bob smiled, the kind of smile that only comes with age and love. "Would you like a true story?" he asked. "Or a magical one?" Max sat up straighter, excitement glowing in his face. "Can I have both?" Bob nodded. "The best stories are always a bit of both." He sat down beside Max and looked out the window with him. "Once," Bob began, "a long time ago, the sky fell in love with a mountain. Every morning, it would paint itself in colors just to impress the mountain, gold, lavender, even fiery red. But the mountain, being made of stone, never spoke. Still, the sky never gave up. Day after day, it sent clouds like letters, rain like songs, and lightning like sparks of longing." Max listened, utterly still. "And even though the mountain stayed silent," Bob continued, "the sky never stopped loving it. Because sometimes, love means simply being there, painting the world, quietly, beautifully, expecting nothing in return." Max whispered, "That's kind of sad but also nice." Bob gently tousled his hair. "The sky teaches us that even silence can hold meaning. That every story, yours, mine, even the stars, has a place up there." Max looked up at the sky again, this time with a soft smile. "I hope the sky remembers this story too." Bob leaned back with a sigh of contentment. "Oh, it already has." Max nodded eagerly, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. Grandpa Bob smiled and eased into his old wooden rocking chair. The one that creaked just right, like it held stories of its own. He leaned back, took a slow breath, and gazed out the window, as if pulling a tale straight from the stars themselves. Bob began softly, his voice deep and gentle. "Long ago, when the world was still young, the sky wasn't just a canvas of blue stretching above us. It was alive, breathing, dreaming. It shimmered with ancient memories and whispered secrets. Every star you see up there was once someone's wish. And every cloud? A story waiting to be told." Max's mouth parted in awe. "Like a giant book?" he asked. "With pages that float?" "Exactly," Grandpa said, eyes twinkling. "A book that's always changing. And in that book, there was a story about a little boy, not so different from you, Max, who longed to touch the sky." Max leaned in closer, completely drawn in. "He was full of wonder," Bob continued. "He'd look up every day and dream of flying, of dancing among the clouds and catching starlight in his hands. So one morning he decided to try. He climbed the tallest tree in the valley, its branches swaying and groaning under his weight. Higher and higher he went, past the birds, past the rustling leaves, until he reached the very top." "Did he touch it?" Max asked breathlessly. Bob shook his head. He stretched his arms as far as he could, but no matter how hard he reached, the sky remained just beyond his fingertips. Max's brow furrowed. "I'd jump from the highest branch. I'd try again and again." Bob chuckled warmly. And that's exactly what the boy did. He tried again and again. Morning after morning, he climbed, leapt, reached. But the sky, so wide and far, always slipped away. One day, exhausted and heartbroken, the boy sat beneath the tree. He looked up with tear-filled eyes and whispered, "Why won't you come closer?" There was a pause. Max held his breath. "And then," Bob said, lowering his voice to a near whisper, "something magical happened. The sky," hearing the boy's quiet question and moved by his determination, reached down to him. A breeze wrapped around him like a hug. A sunbeam warmed his face. And for a moment, just one beautiful moment, the sky and the boy touched. Max's eyes widened, his voice hushed. What happened after that? Bob smiled. The boy never stopped dreaming. But from that day on he knew. The sky doesn't just sit above us. It listens. It remembers. And sometimes, when our hearts are open enough, it answers. Max leaned against his grandfather's arm, quiet and full of wonder. Do you think the sky still tells stories like that? Bob looked up through the window, where the first stars had begun to appear. I think it never stopped. Grandpa's voice softened, becoming no more than a gentle whisper. The boy, he said, felt a warmth wrap around him, soft and light, like a hug from the sky itself. A breeze brushed his cheek, and the air carried a whisper, a voice like the rustle of autumn leaves and the murmur of a sleepy stream. It told him something he would never forget, that though he could never hold the sky in his hands, he could carry its dreams in his heart. Max leaned in close, his voice low and full of wonder. Did he believe it? Bob nodded slowly. He did. And from that moment on he saw the world with new eyes. He began to notice how the sky changed its colors with the turning of the seasons, soft pastels in spring, golden fire in the fall. He saw how stars twinkled like tiny lanterns hung high by invisible strings, and how the clouds drifted like thoughts across the heavens. Max smiled dreamy. He must have felt like the sky was his friend. A gentle smile crept across Grandpa's face, touched with memory and love. Exactly, he said. He realized the sky wasn't just above him. It was all around him, woven into the air he breathed, the light that warmed his skin, the quiet moments between heartbeats. There was a stillness then, soft and golden like the last light of day. Max stared at his grandfather, eyes wide. Grandpa, was that boy you? Bob paused. His eyes twinkled like starlight caught in a deep well of time. Perhaps, he said with a wink. Or perhaps it was someone just like you. Max leaned in even closer, his voice barely more than a breath. Tell me more, Grandpa, he whispered. Tell me about the sky's dreams. Grandpa Bob didn't answer right away. His eyes wandered to the window, where the first stars had begun to blink into view. Tiny lanterns flickering in the darkening sky. The sky, he said softly, dreams of connection, of bringing people together. It dreams of laughter carried across open fields, of warm voices rising like songs beneath its endless ceiling. It dreams of families gathered close, telling stories by firelight, sharing meals, sharing love. Max's brow furrowed thoughtfully. Even us, he asked. When it's just you and me? Bob turned to him, eyes warm. Especially us. He paused, rocking gently in his chair. The wood creaked like an old lullaby. But sometimes, he continued, the sky dreams of sorrow too. It remembers every tear that's fallen beneath it, every goodbye whispered into the wind. It carries the weight of those moments too. And when hearts break, the sky leans in close, offering its quiet comfort. A breeze to dry the tears. A sunset to soften the ache. It wants us to know that love, once shared, never truly disappears. Max looked out the window, his eyes wide and full of thought. Is that why the sky feels so big, Grandpa? He asked softly. Because it holds so much? Bob smiled, and this time it was the kind of smile that carries 1,000 memories. Yes, my dear boy, he said. The sky is vast because it has to be. It holds all of our joy and sorrow, our laughter and pain, our hopes, our fears. And just like the sky, our hearts are big enough to hold them too. For a long, gentle moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, the stars continued to bloom in the dark, and inside, the only sound was the slow rhythm of the rocking chair, and two hearts, quietly dreaming under the same sky. Max looked down at his hands, his fingers curling slightly in his lap. A silence settled between him and Grandpa, soft but heavy, like the weight of a memory. Do you think the sky remembers Grandma? Max asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. The room grew still. Only the quiet creak of Grandpa's rocking chair moved through the air, like a heartbeat holding space for something sacred. Grandpa Bob took a slow breath, his eyes distant but kind. Of course it does, he said gently. The sky remembers every smile she gave, every laugh that lit up a room. It remembers how she loved, how deeply, how brightly. Every moment she was here, the sky was watching. And now, when you look up, you can feel her love shining down, like the stars, quiet, steady, always there. Max blinked, then reached up to wipe his eyes with the sleeve of his shirt. I like that, he said. It makes it feel like she's not really gone. Grandpa leaned forward, his voice full of warmth. She isn't, Max. Not to the sky. And not to us. Max looked up at the ceiling, then out the window again, where the stars now shimmered like tiny echoes of everything they had spoken about. Do you think she sees us, Grandpa? He asked. Grandpa Bob nodded, his voice low and steady. I think love like hers never really leaves. It finds its way into everything. The wind in the trees, the warmth of the sun, the hush of night. When we miss her, all we have to do is close our eyes and remember. That's when we feel her most. Max thought about that for a long moment. Sometimes I hear her humming. I think, maybe it's just in my head. Bob smiled. Maybe. Or maybe it's the sky singing her song back to you. Max's eyes began to grow heavy, the way they always did when the night was deep and the stories were full. If the sky remembers everything, will it remember me too? He murmured. Grandpa reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from Max's forehead. It already does, he said. Every time you laugh. Every time you dream. Every time you look up and wonder. Max yawned, curling a little closer into the blanket. Then I'm going to dream something big tonight, he whispered. Bob leaned down and kissed the top of his head. Good, he said. The sky loves a good dream. And as Max drifted off to sleep, the stars outside seemed to flicker just a little brighter, like a quiet promise from above, that all dreams, all love, and all memories are never lost to the sky. Grandpa leaned back in his chair, a playful sparkle in his eyes, his voice taking on the rhythm of mischief and magic. Did you know, he said, that the sky loves to play? Max looked up, eyebrows raised in surprise. On stormy days, Bob went on. It dances with the wind, twirling and spinning like a child with too much energy. The thunder? That's the sky's laughter. And lightning. He leaned closer, grinning. That's its mischievous wink. Max burst into a giggle. The sky's kind of silly. Grandpa chuckled along. Even the grandest things know how to laugh, he said. And on quiet, clear nights like this one, the sky becomes a storyteller. He pointed out the window. It paints pictures with stars. Look closely and you'll see dragons, great ships sailing across the dark, and heroes from long, long ago. Max pressed his face against the glass, eyes scanning the sky. Then he gasped. Grandpa, I see a dragon. Right there. He pointed excitedly toward a cluster of stars. Bob squinted, following Max's finger. Ah yes, he said with a dramatic nod. A mighty dragon indeed. Wings outstretched, guarding a treasure of dreams. Max beamed, eyes dancing with wonder. And look, Grandpa continued, pointing to a bright streak in the sky. Just beyond its tail, a knight riding a comet. Sword raised, cloak flying in the wind. Max laughed. He's chasing the dragon. Or maybe, Bob said. They're just old friends, racing across the sky to see who can reach the moon first. Max's laughter quieted into a thoughtful smile. I like that better. Outside, the stars shimmered above them like scattered jewels. Inside, the room felt wrapped in something gentle, like magic or memory or love. Grandpa, Max said softly. Do you think the sky ever runs out of stories? Bob looked out at the endless night, then shook his head slowly. No, my boy, he said. The sky's stories go on forever, just like ours. As the night deepened, Grandpa's stories grew even richer, like starlight thickening in the sky. His voice softened, weaving wonder into every word. There was a time, Bob said, when the sky became a canvas, vast and wild, splashed with colors the world had never seen. Not just the usual blues and pinks, but shades with no names. Rivers of silver, storms of glowing jade, fire clouds that shimmered like molten opal. Max's eyes widened, shimmering in the dim light. Artists from every corner of the earth looked up, Bob continued. They rushed to paint it, to catch even a glimpse. But the sky, oh, it was too playful for that. Just when a brush would rise, the colors would swirl and shift. What was golden became green. What was still began to dance. Max shook his head slowly. That's not fair, but kind of amazing. Grandpa chuckled, nodding. The sky isn't meant to be captured, Max. It's meant to be remembered. That's what makes it special. Max turned toward the window again, the stars twinkling just beyond the glass. I wish I could see it. Bob's voice dipped into a hush, like a lullaby unfolding. Close your eyes, little one, he said gently. Let your heart do the seeing. Imagine the sky as a painter's palette, swirling with gold and violet and emerald. Picture clouds that glow like lanterns, stars that hum softly in the silence. Max obeyed, eyes shutting tight, lips parting just slightly. It's beautiful, he whispered. Bob smiled, watching him. That's the magic of the sky, he said. It doesn't live just above us. It lives within us. In our dreams, our memories, our wonder. The sky is part of everything, and everything is part of the sky. And in that quiet moment, with the old house wrapped in warmth and moonlight, the sky outside seemed to lean in close, listening, remembering, and painting a little more color into the hearts below. Max tilted his head, curiosity glinting in his eyes like tiny stars of his own. Grandpa, he asked, do you think the stars ever dance? Grandpa Bob chuckled, a soft sound full of warmth, and leaned back just a little farther in his rocking chair. A twinkle sparkled in his eye, as if he knew a secret the rest of the world had forgotten. Only, he said, when someone is watching closely enough. Max's eyebrows lifted. Really? Bob nodded slowly. There was a night long ago, when the stars performed a dance just for one little girl. Max leaned in, eyes wide. A girl? Yes, Bob said. She had been feeling very sad. Her family had to move far away, and she missed everything. Her school, her garden, even the way the trees swayed outside her old window. That night, with her heart full of longing, she sat quietly by her new window, just like you do, and whispered her loneliness to the sky. Max's voice dropped to a hush. What did the sky do? Bob smiled. It listened. And then, the stars shimmered brighter than they ever had before. One by one, they began to twirl, to flicker, to leap across the night like fireflies set free. Some traced loops, some raced in zigzags, and a few just pulsed, slowly like heartbeats. It was their way of saying, we hear you. You're not alone. Max sat in thoughtful silence, the picture blooming behind his eyes. And she smiled, he asked. For the first time in days, Bob said. A real smile. One that reached her eyes. Max looked up at the sky, as if hoping to catch a glimpse of a star mid-spin. The stars were her friends, he whispered. Bob's voice softened. And they're yours too. They always listen. They don't always speak with words, but they answer in light, in movement, in the stillness between heartbeats. You just have to look up and believe. Max nestled a little deeper into his seat, the glow of the stars outside mirrored in his quiet gaze. Above them, the sky stretched on forever, silent, watchful, waiting to dance. Max's gaze drifted upward once more, and he noticed the moon, round and glowing, resting high above the rooftops like a lantern hung in the heavens. Grandpa, he whispered. What about the moon? Does it tell stories too? Grandpa Bob smiled, his eyes catching the same silver light that poured through the window. Oh, the moon, he said, leaning back with a thoughtful breath, is the sky's quietest storyteller. It doesn't shout like thunder or twinkle like the stars. It speaks in whispers, in silver and shadow, in glows and hushes. Max leaned in, his voice soft. What kind of stories? Bob's voice dropped to the rhythm of a lullaby. Stories of wanderers walking through the night, who find their way home by its light. Of sailors lost at sea, who looked up at the moon and remembered which way was north. Of wolves that howl not in sadness, but in song. And of deer, rabbits, and foxes who, when no one is watching, gather in clearings to dance beneath the moonbeams, as soft music plays from somewhere you can't quite hear. Max's eyelids drooped, but his imagination fluttered awake. Do the animals really dance? He asked, his voice touched by sleep. Bob nodded. When the world is quiet enough, and the moon is full enough, the forest becomes a ballroom. Even the trees sway to the rhythm. Max yawned, cuddling closer into his blanket. I wish I could dance in moonlight. Grandpa leaned over, and gently brushed a hand through the boy's hair. "You already do, little one," he whispered. "Every time your dreams rise up and touch the sky, you're dancing, right there among the stars and moonlight alike." Max smiled faintly, eyes now fully closed. Outside, the moon glowed brighter, as if it too was listening. The whole world seemed to hush. And then, in the gentle silence, something magical happened, though no one would have seen it with their waking eyes. In Max's dream, he stood barefoot in a clearing, the grass cool beneath his feet and the air painted silver. Around him, fireflies swirled in slow spirals. The moon hung low, not distant and far away, but close, close enough to hear, close enough to feel. Music drifted from the trees, soft and strange. From the shadows came dancers, foxes with ivy crowns, rabbits wrapped in flowing moonlight, birds trailing feathers that shimmered like stardust. They nodded to Max as he stepped forward, not surprised to see him. And Max laughed as he twirled, as light as air, spinning under the stars. He danced, not to be seen, not to be remembered, but simply because it was beautiful. Back in the cozy room, Grandpa Bob looked at the sleeping boy and smiled. Then he glanced once more at the moon. "Thank you," he whispered. And the moon, ever quiet, glowed a little brighter. Max stirred beneath the blanket, sitting up just slightly. His eyes were heavy with sleep, but his thoughts still danced in the starlight. "Grandpa," he murmured, "if I made a wish to the sky, do you think it would come true?" Bob turned to him, his voice soft and steady. "If the wish comes from your heart, the sky always listens. But sometimes, it answers in ways we don't expect." Max blinked, thoughtful. "Like what?" Grandpa's chair rocked gently, the soft creak like a lullaby keeping time. "Well," he said, "sometimes the sky answers by sending you a new friend when you're feeling lonely, or by letting the breeze carry a song that reminds you of someone you love. Sometimes, it gives you a morning where you wake up and feel a little braver, even if yesterday, you felt very small." Max's head tilted, resting against his grandfather's arm. "I think I'd wish," he said slowly, "for a sky that never forgets." Bob looked down at him, heart full. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from Max's forehead. "Then you've already gotten your wish, Max," he said. The boy looked up, puzzled but comforted. "You see," Bob continued, "the sky remembers everything. Every whisper, every laugh, every tear. It holds them in its clouds and starlight and winds. It carries them across time, gently, like fireflies in a jar." Max's voice came as a sleepy sigh. "Even my wish?" "Especially your wish." A silence settled over the room, soft and peaceful. Outside the window, the sky stretched on, endless and ancient, tender and watchful. The moon had begun its slow drift toward the horizon, making way for the first hints of dawn. But in that still hour, between dream and waking, it felt like the whole sky was leaning and listening, remembering. Max's breathing slowed, and as his eyes finally closed, he held one last thought in his heart, a quiet hope cradled by stars, that somewhere in the vastness above, his wish was floating gently, safe, and never forgotten. A comfortable silence settled between them, tender and full. Outside, the chirping of crickets drifted in through the open window like tiny lullabies, rising and falling with the hush of the night. Max let out a long yawn, his eyelids growing heavier with each passing breath. "Grandpa," he murmured, barely awake, "will you tell me one more story? One about the sky and us?" Without a word, Grandpa Bob reached for the blanket and gently tucked it around Max, pulling it up beneath his chin with the same care he'd once given Max's father when he was small. He waited a moment, then began in a soft, steady voice. "Once," he said, "there was a family who loved the sky as much as you do. They believed that no matter where life took them, no matter how far they had to travel or how many things changed, if they just kept looking up, they would never feel alone." Max breathed quietly, barely stirring. "And so," Grandpa continued, "every night, no matter what, they would gather together beneath the stars. Sometimes they sat on porches. Sometimes they lay on the grass. Sometimes they only had a window to look through, but that was enough. They told stories, shared dreams, and whispered wishes. And the sky listened, just as it always had." Grandpa paused, glancing toward the heavens. They didn't need maps to stay connected. They didn't need perfect words or perfect endings. Just each other. And the sky. Max didn't respond. His breathing had slowed into the rhythm of sleep, his face peaceful and still, a tiny smile playing at the corner of his lips. Bob leaned down and kissed his forehead, his voice now only for the stars. And that family, he whispered, is still here, still watching, still dreaming. As long as there's sky above, their story never ends. He sat back, resting quietly beside the boy. Outside, the night held steady. The stars shimmered softly, and the moon continued its slow drift toward morning, carrying with it one more story, one more dream, one more promise not to forget. And inside, wrapped in warmth and wonder, a little boy slept beneath a sky that would always remember. Max's breathing slowed, soft and steady, his small head slowly drooping until it came to rest against Grandpa's shoulder. The weight was light, but full of trust, like a secret shared only between two hearts under the stars. Grandpa Bob didn't move. He simply wrapped an arm around the boy and gently stroked his hair. His voice no more than a whisper carried on the stillness of the night. The family knew, he said, that the sky was a bridge between the past and the present, between those who are here and those who are gone. And in its infinite expanse, they found comfort. They knew that love, once given, doesn't disappear, it becomes part of the sky. Max stirred just slightly, murmuring through the veil of sleep, "I want us to be like that family." Grandpa smiled, a quiet warmth in his eyes. "We already are, Max," he whispered. His words lingered for a moment in the air, then faded, just as Max drifted fully into dreams. Silence returned to the room. Deep, gentle, and kind. Bob looked up and out the window, where the moon now hung low in the sky like a silver pendant suspended from the stars. Its light spilled across the floor in pale ribbons, wrapping the room in a soft, glowing hush. He gave one final glance at the sleeping boy beside him, eyes full of wonder and love. "Good night, little dreamer," he said softly. "May the sky watch over you." And with that, the night folded gently around them, grandfather, grandson, and the endless sky above, holding their story in its quiet, eternal light. The house was quiet now, wrapped in the hush that only deep night can bring. The soft ticking of the old clock on the wall marked time like a lullaby, slow and steady. Everything felt still, as if the world itself had paused to listen. Grandpa Bob rose from the rocking chair with care, gently scooping Max into his arms. The boy stirred but didn't wake, his head resting peacefully against Grandpa's chest, his breath warm and even. Step by step, Grandpa carried him through the hallway, the shadows soft and familiar. He laid Max down gently on the bed, pulling the blanket up to his chin. Then, as he had done for years, he leaned down and pressed a kiss to the boy's forehead. "Sleep well, my sky gazer," he whispered, his voice full of love. He lingered for a moment, watching Max's peaceful face, then returned quietly to the rocking chair by the window. Outside, the night stretched wide and endless, the stars shimmering like notes in a silent song. And as he looked out at the sky he loved so deeply, Grandpa Bob felt something shift, subtle, yet certain. The stars twinkled just a little brighter, as if nodding in quiet recognition. He smiled, settling into the gentle rhythm of the chair. "The sky has given me so many stories," he said softly, almost to himself. "And tonight, I passed one on." The rocking chair creaked in reply, and the stars held steady in their watch. The sky above, vast, ancient, and ever listening, cradled the house in its arms, guarding dreams, and keeping stories alive. And in that perfect stillness, under the moon's tender glow, a new chapter began, not just in the sky, but in the heart of a little boy who would always remember to look up. The next morning, light spilled gently into the little house, casting golden stripes across the floor. A breeze fluttered the curtains, and somewhere outside, a bird sang the first note of the day. Max sat up with a start, his eyes wide and bright. The dream still lingered in his heart like the last note of a lullaby. He scrambled from bed and hurried to the window, breath catching in his throat. The sky stretched before him, vast and open, painted in brilliant blue. Fluffy white clouds drifted lazily across it like thoughts floating through a peaceful mind. "Grandpa," Max called, his voice full of delight. "The sky looks happy today." Grandpa Bob joined him a moment later, still in his slippers, his steps slow but sure. He placed a hand gently on Max's shoulder. and looked out at the morning sky. Indeed it does, he said with a quiet smile. And do you know why? Max shook his head, curiosity shining in his eyes. Why? Because it heard our story last night, Grandpa replied. And the sky? It loves nothing more than to be remembered, to be loved. Max's face lit up with the kind of joy only children and dreamers truly know. Then I'll love it every day, he said, grinning wide. Grandpa gave his shoulder a gentle squeeze, his heart full once more. And so, under the watchful eye of the sky, a sky that remembers, that dreams, that dances and listens, their day began. It was a new chapter in an endless story, a story of love, of memory, and of dreams that stretch as wide as the sky itself.